For coming this early morning to start off SphinxConnect with this conversation. My name is Khandeya Sheppard, and I am a senior program manager for the Baltimore Symphony or Kids program. And I brought here today two of my colleagues who I've had a lot of conversations with, and I think what we've been talking about the past couple years at SphinxConnect is really pertinent to the next phase of growth in the classical arts field. And classical music field. So without further ado, I'll let them introduce themselves because no one can do it better and explain to you what our backgrounds have to do with what this conversation entails.
My parents took me out of the school I was currently attending in order for me to attend the Performing Arts Magnet School. So in order for me to be able to attend this school, the lottery application process was very different than what it is now in this country. My parents had to put their car in a parking lot at a mall, and my father slept there for 7 days. And that was how the slot was held for me so that I could attend this school. I'm certain that he and my mother had no idea the impact that would have on my entire life. The impact music has on a child, and on anyone really, is emotional, personal, and social development, and all of those are.
So, because of my dad, because of his sacrifice, I'm here today. And I think it's always important to pay homage to those who sacrificed for us, so that we can continue learning how to make personal sacrifices for our children. So my name is Colita Jones, and I play the violin, but I'm an artist, I'm an educator, I'm an advocate, and I'm responsible for rebuilding the table, and I'm responsible for those legs and making sure that they include access, opportunities, resources for all of our children. And as of 3 days ago, I just became the Assistant Director of Education and Engagement at the Hart School, so another platform to bring more of our kids to. So because of the DC Youth Orchestra program as a child, yes, I got to play in a black orchestra my entire life. I didn't know there was a problem until I left there. I didn't know that there wasn't access until I left and went to college at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, where I was the only black person. I actually thought there was something wrong. I thought I was at the wrong school because I was so used to seeing people that looked like me, and I went to a place where I didn't know who I was anymore. I was losing that behind the music. I was losing that behind the masters. And the bottom line is there are more masters than the ones that are performed now, and we have to celebrate that all the time. Fast forward to graduate school. Because of Anthea Cruston, I played my first black concerto. I didn't know it was there, but she empowered me, and she taught me that I needed to use my voice for greatness and for building access points for everyone else, no matter where I was and no matter what it took to have that happen. And now because of the Hart School, I will have the honor and the privilege to ensure that our children that you all are working with every day have a space, have a voice, have safety, feel like they belong, feel like they know where they're going, and have someone there to lead by example. And that's my personal responsibility. So that's my story.
Thank you, Calida.
Well, I'll get started. Good morning, everyone. We can do better. Good morning, everyone. You can tell I'm a teacher. So my name is Camille Delaney-McNeill, and I had the exact opposite experience as Calida. I grew up and studied in mostly predominantly non-people of color ensembles and spaces, and didn't realize that that was a problem until much later. And, you know, I was very much on the performance track. Went to University of Maryland College Park, got a degree in performance, went to the Peabody Institute, formerly Conservatory, and got a master's in performance as well. And, you know, just to give you a little bit of insight into my background, the first time I was exposed to names of musicians and composers of color, Florence Price, all these wonderful, talented individuals, was a master's student. And going to an Imani Wynn's chamber music festival camp for the first time, and seeing, and eyes just being wide open. So, you know, that was kind of a little bit of my educational background. And upon graduating from Peabody, I happily stumbled across Orchids, a Systema-inspired program, and found that I could actually do something more with my talent, more with my gifts and my skill sets that no one, by the way, prepared me for. And not to blame anyone, but just to say the reality of it. No one really built me up in a way to say, hey, this is an option for you. More, if you want to fit in here, you know, you're going to play the Poulenc and the Dittier and all of that, and you're going to memorize it, and you're going to do concertos, and that's it. So when I came across this program and the work that Marin Alsop, Nick Skinner, my colleague here, Dan Trahey, you know, built the foundation for, I was really moved. Oh, and by the way, I look like the kids I'm serving. This is excellent. So that has been my space and my transition into the educational field, and I've been with Orchids for the past 7 years, and I'm now director of programs. But I come from a musical background. I have somewhat of a famous mother. Who is a singer, and I tried to divorce myself from her, and I'm going to do it on my own, so I picked flute. But we had the opportunity, and I had the opportunity to share my skill set and my gifts with my mother. She's going to kill me for telling this story. But last year, we were able to perform with some of our Orchid students at the Library of Congress. And my mom was instrumental in re-premiering Treemonisha. And as some of you may know, we just were celebrating Scott Joplin. And we were able to put together a fabulously talented group of our Orchid students. The mother of one of them, who's in the audience today, we love Asia, she's in this picture here. She and I often play duets. We're able to play the slow drag from Treemonisha. So I want to give you a background. I'm not only an educator, but I still dabble into my performance aspect. We had fun that day. By the way, just to give you a little bit of the stock I come from, this performance was done, Mom, don't kill me. This performance was done 3 weeks after she had a major 16-hour surgery to remove a mass from inside her body, luckily not cancerous. And she loves this program so much, and she supports the work that we're doing, that she got up in a vulnerable space and performed this with me. So I just want to give her a shout. And she sees this video later. By the way, she's 72 in this as well, so yeah.
Thanks, Camille. And that is Carmen Ball, just so you guys know, if you weren't sure. My name, like I said before, is Khandeya Sheppard. Everybody knows me as Kay through these programs. My background is completely different than everybody else in this room. I do not play a traditional instrument at all, but I've been musical since forever, and my parents knew that. I gravitated towards the steel pan, the steel drum. That's my principal instrument, meaning that's the main instrument I play, meaning I got my education all on that instrument. So how did I get to this space? How did I traverse my journey? Well, what I share with Calida and Camille is that I'm an artist, I'm an administrator, I'm an educator as well. I've been pretty much involved in the education, in music education, since I was a child. So much like the El Sistema model, each one teach one, right? So in the steel pan model, we learn side by side, we learn mostly by rote, and every student, every youth is responsible for teaching the next youth next to them, whatever passage of music we have to learn. My journey wasn't straight and narrow. I've always had to adapt. I've always had to adapt. I'm gonna say it again. I've always had to adapt to both worlds, to both the contemporary world and the classic musical world. I ended up, through all kinds of encouragement, through all kinds of educators and opportunities around me, graduating from the Berklee College of Music as the first female steel pan principal to graduate from that college. Now, thank you. I will say, I was not the first female steel pan principal to go to the school, but I was the first one to graduate. And to be able to advocate for the next generation of steel pan players that might want to pursue education to that degree around me, was able to advocate when I got there to the table for them to advertise that they took steel pan principles, because I didn't know. That wasn't something that was in my head. I just knew that I needed more of a challenge. And then, like Camille, I happily stumbled upon the Orchids program. Now, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I was born in Tobago, the smaller of the islands. And I moved to Baltimore, Maryland when I was 9 years old, in 1997. By then, I was playing the steel pan. When I went to middle school, when I went to 6th grade, I wanted to play the violin or the saxophone. I had made up my mind. That's the two things I wanted to play. And I got there and the teacher said, "Do you have money to rent or purchase this instrument?" And of course, we just moved from a country. Like, I still have my accent and all that. And I'm like, I'm not asking my mother after this big move to buy me whatever. I'm already playing steel pan. I'm gonna continue to do that. And along the way, I picked up an interest in computer science. So I dabbled in going to school for math and science all along the way through high school. I'm still playing the steel pan, still getting better. And it took somebody noticing that I was developing skill in that instrument to even suggest for me to go to a school like Berklee College of Music. But they had walked the path before me, and that was really important. They had gone to that school and known that there were educators there to educate me, to be able to suggest that for me. And so when I came back, when I graduated from Berklee in 2011, I started working for their music outreach program, City Music. And I was doing the things that I'm doing now at Orchids. But when I came back home, made a decision to come back home in 2013, it was to study what the Baltimore Symphony was doing with their outreach programs, their education programs. And Orchids it drew me in because it didn't exist when I left Baltimore. It didn't exist. I left Baltimore in 2009. It had existed already, but not in my mind. I had no idea what was going on, what was starting to happen. In 1997, when I was looking for a program like this, it didn't exist. So when it was time for me to come back, I was like, oh yeah, I'm coming back. I'm doing this for the kids because they have to understand what this opportunity means. And for somebody like Baltimore to leave Baltimore and go out to a higher education institution and thrive and be there, and me being, I don't even play the instrument. You can do well. You can be the outlier and do well. So I want to show you a little bit of what I'm able to do with my instrument, because a lot of people don't know what this instrument can do. So, thank you. Now, you all recognize that song, and I want to point out that I picked this video on purpose because that team of people there next to me are all steel pan educators. They all got educated at higher level institutions. And we've all come back. This particular performance was at a Christmas concert in front of students that we're trying to impress upon. You can reach this level. So we're performing right before they have to go perform their Christmas concert. And they're a little nervous, but they're seeing us up there like, oh, I see you all the time. And this is a famous song. And you guys are playing classical music. So I want to go back and congratulate everyone for being here right now in this room. And thank all the pioneers that did all the work to get us to this place right now. Thank all of them. We stand on their shoulders. But now that it's 2020, we have to sit and reaffirm what our stake is in this classical arts field. We have to do it. In terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the diversity work has been increasing with more initiatives happening globally to create access points to the arts. But our shared frustrations, we come here every year with shared frustrations, right? It leads me to pose the question today, have we moved the needle enough in terms of equity and inclusion? Like I said, I chose to show this video myself and my colleagues because I've always known, this is something I've always known, that I can achieve musical excellence on my instrument. In my culture, this instrument was built in the 1930s. My culture was still under colonial rule around that time. We've always been adapting classical music to that instrument. But everybody else out here, the world that I had to step into to build my career hasn't been knowledgeable of that truth. I've always been walking this path knowing that, look, I can do anything. So I've always been an outlier to the arts landscape. And I've always been looking at things from outside the box. And as a matter of fact, your students of color that you're educating right now, all of them are outliers too, because these pathways don't exist. So in order to educate a student like myself, you guys are going to have to think outside the box now. It's 2020. So there's some of us that have gotten here. We're all in different positions now in these education institutions and other institutions that already exist. And I'm trying to figure out how to get you all to that. And the important part that I want you to hold on to is that there were educators there along the way. There were administrators there along the way creating these pathways for me to be able to traverse through and coming back. And we're all trained and we all have experiences that we're coming with to these institutions. And now I'm picking the word responsibility. We have a responsibility now to change the landscape, to move it forward. What's our responsibility as educators and administrators of color? And how do we follow through and make a lasting impact for the next decade and more to come?
I can take that one, and I just want to state for the room, you know, we say responsibility, and we say responsibility of administrators of color, but it is not solely our work. And I know that a lot of us in this space know that, but I want to reiterate it very, very plainly again. It is not our work, and we come to this wonderful, fabulous conference every single year. I've seen faces that I've seen for the past 3 years now, and we still are having some of the same conversations. So I just want to say, and I want this to sit with everybody, desiring change is not the vehicle that delivers the objective. Desiring the change is not the vehicle that delivers the objective. There's a very real physicality to the work that we are all here to do, okay? And so Kay is talking about having those leaders and those educators and those mentors along the way. Guess what? I didn't have that until grad school. I didn't have that until I went outside of my educational track. So think about the opportunity we have. We're not challenging, some of us are, but not all of us are challenging at every opportunity that we have to create something new and different. It's very, very easy to slip into what is comfortable. It is very, very easy to slip into what we have done and what's easy to produce. That's not what this work is about. You're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to cause you to work harder, maybe longer. It's going to cause you to think more, to convene more in order to make that systemic change. And so what I actually see, and what hopefully I try to bring to the space that I'm in, is a sense of urgency. Whenever I'm coming into that platform, whenever I'm coming into an opportunity to make change, it comes with urgency. And I don't necessarily feel that in all of our spaces, and I don't necessarily hear that in all of our conversations. I hear nice chatter, I hear big ideas, it's fabulous, it's beautiful, then we go home and, well, you know, it's gonna be a slow process. It might take a while to change, but there is still urgency to that. And so how do we create a space, how do we create moments and opportunities to challenge each other along the way? We're gonna talk a little bit about vulnerability in a second too, because I think there is a divide between, oh, I don't want to offend, oh, you know, well, I'm not the expert. This is collective work. We do a lot with our program with collective composition, that's what we label it. It's a collective work. And so with that comes a level of vulnerability and a level to accept that, and to accept that you will be corrected, and to accept that you will be challenged, and know that it's done in love, and know that it's done in the service of being excellent educators, because as people of color, that's all we've been taught to be. We have to show up excellent in everything we do. Who's heard that? Parents, you have to be better than everybody in the room just to kind of get, really? That's all that's heard? Okay. Well, I've heard it a lot.
Twice as good.
Okay, thank you. Raise them high, you know? And it was funny, we just had a conversation last night with a few folks. You know, as a shared, diverse conversation with different kinds of people, and the question posed was like, you know, you people of color, they're doing such hard work, why don't you take a break? Just relax. We can't relax.
This was last night. Yes.
This was last night. We can't, and it was meant with, you know, love and curiosity. There's no blame there, but we can't let up. And we need our counterparts, our allies, to not let up either. We need you to generate in yourself that sense of urgency that we have to carry with us every day.
Just piggybacking on what Camille said, in my opinion, I think the large part of this process is the mindset. So long we've been in a fixed mindset, and when I say we, I mean the field, because I don't want to single anyone out, but for the most part, arts organizations have been in a very fixed mindset when it comes to board makeup, when it comes to programming, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to the tokenism that often happens in the marketing that I receive in the mail, and then I wonder, well, is this really for me, or are you checking a box to make me relevant? And that's a real thing. It's lived experiences that all of us in this room have had. So the three people that are sitting up here and everyone that's sitting in the audience, all of you have lived experiences, but they have to be brought into the room. You have to walk your talk. You have to be able to be your whole self. And most days, I cannot be my whole self. I have to check portions of myself at the door, because I know it's not going to be received with gratitude and humility. It's going to be received with, well, why is she doing that? Why does she talk that way? Why does she think that way? And I'm questioned, and that's a fixed mindset. Growth is when you're discomfort, when you're sitting in discomfort. To me, that's growth. Success is when you fail. If you're not failing, if you're feeling like, yeah, we're doing this great, then you're not doing anything. Sorry, and that's not to be offensive, but it is to share facts. If you feel like you're always successful when you walk out of a space in this work that we do that's really hard, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes you have to say things that you don't want to say, but you know needs to be said in order to shift the relevancy of the culture that you embody, that's what it is. And then you do it. You walk the talk, you leave here, you go back to your organizations, and you don't get comfortable. You stay in that discomfort and you push for more, because if you don't, you're complacent, and you should wear that badge with honor.
So Calida and Camille are talking about your mindset and what you're going through, and there's a psychology behind everything that we're doing. It's the cycles of change, right? Camille, do you want to talk about it?
No, one thing I want to say to add to that, not only do we need to sit in our discomfort, but understand that some of us are going to go through a grieving process. A grieving of the way of old, a grieving of the standard that we've held ourselves to, and what that now needs to morph through. Understand that. People of color, please understand that. Non-people of color, please understand that. It's going to be a grieving process. And when you come to this space, especially us as administrators of color, educators of color, understanding and identifying where we're seeing our organization in its stage of grief. And then our counterpoints, understanding where you're lying in that process, but being committed to the change. So check this out. It's a little teach for you right now. Cycles of change, much like the cycles of grief, okay? Where are you in this process? I really want you to examine this for those that are running organizations, for those that are in key leadership positions who have been faced with a challenge about doing something with diversity, a challenge about doing something with inclusivity, a challenge around changing the status quo and the norm. Where are you? The most important stage of this change, does anybody know? Anybody familiar with the cycles of change? And let me know what you think the most important stage is. Non-orchids people, they know all about this. Which is the most important phase? Just call out. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, very good. According to psychology and according to clinical psychologists that we've worked with, it's actually stage 3. Preparation. If you can't sit in preparation, if you don't arrive to preparation, you're not going to get to the change part. You're not even going to get to the action. You're not even going to get to the maintenance. So where you have to lean in is in stage 3. If your organization is truly committed to this, if the work that you're doing is truly committed to this change, lean into step 3. The rest will come. And then you'll see at the bottom, when we're maintaining that change, okay, we have arrived. We've done something collectively. If we're not doing it consistently for half a year or more, it's not change. We will relapse. We will.
It's really easy to sit in maintenance. It's like an addiction. It's almost euphoric, right? So you're like, oh, okay, we've done this for half a year. We're good. Like, we got 2 people of color in this orchestra. Woo! We've got a senior program manager who's Latinx. Oh my God, we're really doing this. Sorry, but that's just the beginning. You have to remember the systems that have been put in place have been here for decades. And we are chipping away at it with ice picks that are unimaginable. And through those ice picks, we're in the grief process. We're doing this work and grieving at the same time. And people have to recognize that, both us as the people that are grieving and those that maybe don't understand the grief, but maybe you desire to. Walk that walk with us and understand it, but don't get stuck in the maintenance because it is an addiction. And you can probably think of organizations that you work with or work for who sit in that addiction space. So break the pattern.
Congratulations, you've gotten a job. You've been hired in these organizations to work. You have satisfied somebody's something by being here in this space. You are either meeting a quota, your skill set you have brought to the table, they're going to use in some way. But what do you bring to the table? We have just talked about a lot about what we bring to the table. Our lived experiences come to the table. I do not just walk into this room like I have a role to play, and none of what happened to me before in the past 20 years of me 20 to 24 years of me playing my instrument, going through this challenge, you really think that's not coming to the table? That's coming to the table with me in every decision that I make for my students. Camille and Calida, I want you to talk about how you leverage your positions for advocacy and agency when making strategic decisions for our students.
Well, we kind of talked about this too, but bringing that sense of urgency. But I want to clarify that one does not need to maintain or have a certain level of position to spark change. I don't care if you're a program assistant. I don't care if you're the VP. That is our role and responsibility. When we see something that needs to be addressed, come to the table with that sense of urgency. But then there's a flip side to that. The flip side is, are we creating a space where anyone can come to the table and offer that feedback. Because I tell you, a lot of organizations, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I feel very fortunate in our space that we have had leaders who have listened to us, who have responded to us. Is it perfect? No. But they listen. And again, going back to that, where are you in that cycle? Are you creating a space, if you're in a position of leadership, to hear that feedback, to allow people to bring that urgency and then to address it? The other thing that I think is vital and critical, especially as an administrator or educator of color or a leader of color, mentorship. You have to bring up the next generation so that they can proclaim and execute their vision, so they can be coached. You know, I'm in the Sphinx Lead program, the inaugural cohort. It's been a fabulous, I'd recommend it, anybody who's, yes, I have some of my cohort members here. It's been really powerful. I don't know that I've ever gotten that kind of mentorship in my life. Someone invested at every step of the way, someone to call you out and say, don't think like that, think like this. Go meet that person. Go talk in this way. I've not had that, especially not from a person of color. So that's our role. And you know, you saw a picture of Asia earlier. She's our next generation. She's been shadowing Kay and I for the past however many years. Someone that looks like her, someone that's bringing excellence to the table every step of the way. Make the space, allow for urgency.
Just piggybacking on that, another level of leverage is to increase the quality and quantity of conversations that are being had about this. It has to happen. You know, there's once a quarter where there's a diversity committee meeting where we all come together and talk about, well, what did we do this year? And that's not the work. Right? So increasing the quality of the conversations, and instead of it being surface, like really start to peel back the layers of the onion. Because there's a lot of layers to this work. Quite frankly, diversity, look, we're already diverse. That's not the conversation that needs to be happening. The conversation that needs to be happening is representation happening? And not just at the base level, but at the decision maker level, at the strategic processing level, at the senior executive leadership level. Is that happening? And then are you challenging the status quo in that position as a senior leader? Those are leveraging points in roles that Camille, Kay, and I both hold. Always challenging the status quo, always pushing the envelope a little bit further, and recognizing the efforts that are happening, but still deepening the quality and the quantity. If this is not a conversation you're having at least once a month, then you're not going to see much movement because it's not aggressive enough to just do it once a quarter.
I want to say something, too, that I think we need to address. Not only going through our changes in our cycles and what Calida was talking about, but we need to reimagine and reinvent our measuring stick. Because we're trying to measure success of what we're pushing forward by ways of old. And we can't bring that forward. So again, that's more hard work. I'm sorry, so much work. It's more hard work, but we have to change the standard of how we're measuring our success. So no, it's not once a quarter, it's once a month, maybe it's once a week. And we're checking in, and we're meeting our goals, and we're setting those strategic goals, but we're checking in just like brushing our teeth every day, because that is what we're committed to. And we are holding ourselves, we're not taking a break and enjoying what we've already accomplished, we're trying to get to our end goal. So think about that, please, especially leaders of organization. Think about how we can change how we're measuring our success. You know, and it's interesting, if you all have been here for the past couple of years, there's been panels of the major heads of school, and if many of you know Paul Hogel, he always comes with his CIM report card, and I think his effort in being transparent is some of the most provocative there is, about how he's really measuring his change and trying to be about the work. We need to change our measuring stick.
Part of that process might include disinviting people from the table. It just might include that. It might just mean saying, thank you for your service, pack your bags, and have a great life in whatever you choose to do. Because the problem is, if we spend all our energy trying to convince people, but please believe me, I know this is gonna work, we're wasting good, I don't like to waste energy. I like to be intentional and purposeful, and I like to live every day that way. And my mother taught me that before she passed. And I live that way in her honor. So sometimes it might mean saying, thank you, but no thanks. Because then we can change the measurements. Then we can really shift the conversation and shift how we're evaluating if things are actually working. So check your table. Check your board member platform. Some of them folks might need to bow out. You might need to change your bylaws. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm really late.
She wanted to say that. So I don't know if you guys have picked up. You might not have picked up yet, but I'm a sports fanatic, so I'm using these words to trick your mind. What's your position? We're talking about what we're doing and how we're going to follow through. Think of yourselves as a basketball player right now. There's 5 men on the court, and each of them play dual roles. We're both educating students and educating our institution. We can't what they're saying is that we can't be complacent, and we have hit this goal. You know, the follow through, they talk about you got the arm, the arch, and all that stuff. But the other part of the follow through is not this part, is getting back to your position on defense. That is the part. That's the part that we're talking about right now. That's the part that's taking the most work. So I'm going to leave you with what you think your responsibility is. There's something to be said about leadership, though. Being leaders and leading by example. And the power of doing that. If you bring someone on to lead, let them lead. I will say, I've had the pleasure and the space to be able to do that in Orchids. There's a site called Booker T. Washington that they were going into, and I was brought in 2014, right when the site was getting ready to just launch and get all the kids and recruit everybody, and I was given the space to be able to create something that I thought would work for those students. So not only was I bringing the Baltimore Symphony to the table, I'm thinking from my perspective as a kid growing up in Baltimore, being like, I don't really know about this classical stuff. I'm like, what am I trying to bring to the students? Enjoyment of the arts. We're trying to get them to enjoy it before launching them into this thing. So my students needed a space. They were egging for a space to express themselves. We have to show them how to express themselves through our art. We're trained for that. That's what we're trained for. So what did I do? I was like, okay, we're going to go and do the normal things, but I'm going to give you an outlet. And Camille talked about collective composition. They gravitated towards what they want to say. They already rap. Now they have instruments. How do we do that on the instruments? How do these composers do this on this instrument? So people might say, I started a brass band at Booker T. People might say that that's not the lane that the Baltimore Symphony should be going down. We should be providing, most of these kids in Baltimore City are not going to be in an orchestra, point blank, period. I could not go into that space and tell them, hey, you play a clarinet, you're gonna get an orchestra. Look, I have a saxophone player, where are they going? I play steel pan, where am I going? So where is the space that they're allowed to be themselves? I'm thankful to Nick and Camille and everybody to trust what I was saying, but then I had to get the students on board. It's like, it's going to take an extra day. We got to show them that you're going to show up and you're going to do this. And you know what? They showed up. And the brass band is 4 years running, and we're being called to perform everywhere and represent Orchids. But that's not the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. But they leave the space for us to design what we need in our communities for it to reflect what the students need.
I think we have to remember, piggybacking on that, being part of the orchestra does not have to mean sitting in the seats of the ensemble. right? It can mean marketing. It can mean development. We can fundraise too. Who would have thought? It might mean leading strategic planning. It might mean consulting. We don't have to be in the seats, but the point is we need to be part of the process from step 1, not at step 8 when you realize, oh no, I messed up. Let me find somebody in my Rolodex. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. Like, I want to know at the beginning. I want to be part of the beginning. I want to be in the mess with you to help go through it and sift through it so we can grow together, because we're all parts of the initiative of change. But if you bring people in halfway through the process, it doesn't work. It's not going to work for us. And in the power of leadership, at least from my perspective, and I'll let Camille piggyback on this, please let me lead, okay? Share the power. Don't question me at every step of the juncture, because I think just like everyone else. My brain is developed just like yours. So don't question. If I have an idea that you maybe hadn't considered before, or maybe it makes you uncomfortable, don't question me. Don't say, well, why are you going to do that? What? Like, if I question you, it would be a very different conversation. Think about all the people that have questioned you or you've been questioned by, and how that made you feel when you came to the table vulnerable, wanting to make change, but scared to say it because you don't want to bring your whole self. So we have all these messy issues. So please, and when you hire people like us or like you all, let us lead. We're not going to let you down. We're not coming to mess up your situation. We're coming in to empower it and bring something different, bring a little flavor that might not have been there before.
Kalida's spot on. And I challenge everyone to, it will look different. It will look different, so accept that. And understand that it's okay, that we're coming with our whole self, we're coming with our excellence, we're coming with our new viewpoint. Don't undermine me. Don't set up something on the side because you're buddy-buddy with so-and-so. And that's how we've always done it. We want to come collectively together as a team. We want to challenge each other. We want to be a part of this collective thought. We are thought leaders. But if you undermine me, if you plan around me, what can I do? We all fail. So I just echo that being said, let me lead. Let's stumble together. Let's explore new things together. And don't scale down my ideas. If it's going to be something hard and challenging, can you rise to the occasion with me? Have you considered that? Oh no, let's do this, that's too much, that's too hard. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be different. That's what trailblazing is. That's what reformation is. That's what walking across the bridge and getting pepper sprayed and water hose, that's what change is. Let's change together.
So I see that we have like about 10 minutes left, right? We had this nice little plan that we're going to get you into a group and we're going to do this group exercise, but I'm going to turn it into a question now. What is the most pressing aspect of the field that needs to change in support, I'm looking at this and I don't want to say it, of a more inclusive landscape? And I'd say I didn't want to say that because we're constantly coming up against this wall. We keep saying we want to change this space to be more inclusive, and yet the wall still exists. And so what has happened is every time when we get fed up of hitting that wall, we just create our own. And now we have two spaces. And now our students are just moving into the other space. So what is the most pressing aspect of the field that needs to change in support of change here at this point? And I'm opening this up because I know we only have a few minutes left. If anybody wants to step up and they have something to say, or there's a mic over here, and you can ask a question as well.
Peace, family. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Mic check. Everybody hear me? Peace, family. My name is Miss Black. I think to answer that question, I would say be fearless in your pursuits. I believe that being a person of color, being specifically myself, I challenge every white norm. I challenge every system. I was given this role. It was God-given, not something that I asked for, but because it's who I am. We have these systems that were set in place for so long to hold a certain population of individuals behind. These systems have then spread into all of the subcultures and subsystems and businesses and organizations so that we don't even know they were operating in systems of systematic racism, discrimination. When we hire black and brown faces in our businesses, we think they're supposed to show up one type of way. There is no one shade of black or brown. We're all individuals. And if you want representation in your space, you must be open to what these individuals bring to the table. It's not going to be what you thought. Also, within that, you make it difficult for your leaders in their space to operate in freedom, to challenge these norms. We create these systems where we use fear to stop people from being who they're actually supposed to be, challenging what's actually needed to challenge. And for persons of color in power, you must not reach your goals and forget the reason why. You must not get so complacent in your position that you forget to understand that black and brown shows up many different ways. Your way might be incorrect. Your way might need to be as open as the white way that's happening in this system. We must get into these positions, provide a difference, accept a difference, be accountable, and self-reflective. Without that, you not only are demonstrating in a leader position that you are incapable of looking at yourself and being and creating change, but also to the people who are looking to you for direction, there's no space for safety, for individuality, for creativity. We are redefining, we have to redefine classical music, Western classical music. Music has been classical and classic throughout the history of time everywhere. I'm sorry the geography didn't get the attention on this side of the world. We've been though. So I feel that it's important not to forget the reason why for black and brown individuals in these places. I feel that as non-POC or white leaders, you must quiet your voice a little bit. Because at this place, it's time for learning, simply, not time for speaking. We've done that for years, 400 years of it, and it's gotten us this far. Now it's time to be open and receptive.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello. So my name is Danielle Taylor, and I'm a violinist and violist, and I am the new project inclusion manager for the Chicago Sinfonietta as of Monday. And so, thank you.
Congratulations.
And I think it's both an answer to your question, but also my own thoughts about it. I think what I really want to see and what really needs to happen is not just diversity. I think it has to be a real cultural clash. Because what we're doing is asking black people to show up to these higher levels of management and shed a whole lot on the way. And so when I talk about cultural class, what does it mean to show up holistically? And you asked earlier, what tools do you bring? The other way of looking at that question is, what tools did you have to leave behind? Right? What did we have to leave behind? What skill sets did we learn in our communities and our neighborhoods that are no longer appropriate when we come into this office space, right? So that can come from language and dress and process. How do we negotiate? How do we build relationships? All of these things we learn, there's an appropriate way to do it. And so until at the upper levels where people can bring them their full selves in how they speak and how they negotiate and how they dress, I think that we're still embodying the same philosophies, just with different people. Yet we're asking our students to show up their whole selves, but we're not demanding that we're not having that fight, right? That fight of whiteness, of the way that language happens, of the way that professionalism is decided, right? Who decided that? Who was left behind? And so I think that's what I'm really looking forward to, is at the high levels, like the cultural, really digging into that.
Thank you. All right. I think this is our last statement, and then we have to wrap up. Unfortunately, we got 2 minutes, so you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Teddy Hall, and I really appreciate this session. I'm a percussionist as well. I learned steel pans from my teacher, Ricky Burkhead, at the University of Mississippi, where I went to grad school. And I wrote an article for the Percussive Arts Society on the African American orchestral experience, and we started creating conversations about black percussionists in addition to playing drum set or being in the marching band. But my question to you is, what are your thoughts on increasing minority applicants being hired in the applied area at PWIs and conservatories? Because what I often see, I've taught at several HBCUs, we have a mixture of non-black faculty in our music departments. But when you look at PWIs and conservatories, you don't see a lot of minorities or black professors, in particular in percussion. And my teacher, who's still the only black faculty at the University of Mississippi in the music department, is the one that inspired me to go on and do research on us and continue to pursue excellence and inspire my students. Thank you.
Well, I would just say that using Asia as an example, Ms. Fields, please allow me. I challenge my institution. I challenge Berkeley. Berkeley accepted Asia and gave her no money, and I refused to let her go there. But what did I do after that? I wrote the president a letter, and he responded to that letter. So in terms of getting more people on board, first of all, they have to prepare us for that. So when we're going to these institutions and we're learning from them, they're preparing us to be performers. They're not giving us the full scope of what this industry involves. I went to Berklee College of Music and I studied music business and management on purpose because I wanted to know more than just being a performer. I've been performing since I was 7 years old. I was like, I'm gonna go in here and get more education. But my friends that are singers and violinists, they're being trained to be the next performers, and they didn't have access to that information because they didn't choose that major. That's not fair. And so in order to be able to get more people in those spaces, they have to be able to train them. Thankfully, some of the people like myself, because I'm going in with a entrepreneurial mindset, and I knew I had to do that because I play steel pan and that doesn't exist out here in this world. I took that upon myself to go find that information and then turn it around. Now one of my cohorts, colleagues in the cohort that we went to Berkeley together, he's now on faculty as a steel pan teacher at the college. Now, we went to class together. We graduated. He graduated a year after me. But they had to train him to be able to come back into that same institution and do that. So opening it up more so than just training us just for performance, but training us to carry on the legacy of the classical arts field, because we're going to be educating the next set. That's the only way they're going to change that landscape of having more people of color teaching at that level.
And yes, I promise. One thing. Okay. Mentorship, right? We have to mentor the kids that are there. And I'm going to speak on Asia because she's at the Hart School. And for her, me being in that space now is huge. She walked in with a group of friends Monday morning, and she was like, Miss Calida, oh my God, can I come eat in your office? Can we hang out here? That is so crucial to our students at a lot of the conservatories now, because they don't get to see who they are every day. And now she gets to see me every day. She can come in anytime she wants to. She can share a problem. She can problem solve. We can problem solve together. So I think the job of PWIs is to ensure that that rainbow is accessible in your building, and then that we are able to provide a platform of mentorship, like Camille spoke to, all 4 years. Not just the first semester, not just the freshman year, but all 4 years, so they are prepared to think entrepreneurially and to fight for what they deserve and should have as musicians and leaders in the arts.
Thank you all for coming. I just want to leave you with this statement. We lost a giant on last Sunday, 2 weeks ago. This is what's important. I'm not even going to say it because you can read it yourself. We have to set it up. We have to set it up. Or we're going to be in the same cycle, talking about this, having these same frustrations every year. We got to set it up for the next decade and more. This is the work, and it's going to be hard, but this is the work. Thank you all for coming.